Welcome back, everyone.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in your time zone. Welcome back to Sip&Talk.
It's really fantastic to be back in the studio today.
Oh, I can tell you've got that completely hyper-caffeinated look in your eye right now.
I am heavily caffeinated and ready to go.
Good, because you're going to need it. I hope all of our Sip&Talkers out there have their coffee ready too, because today is, well, the information load today is just insane.
It really is. We are looking at a week that honestly feels like a massive turning point.
Yeah, earlier before we started recording, I called it Liberation Day 2.0. It feels like the entire news cycle just chugged 5 energy drinks and started sprinting in random directions.
Right. We've got this new tariff war turning the legal system upside down.
We have AI suddenly causing this massive wave of employment anxiety to scare trade.
And of course, the robots. We absolutely have to talk about those robots.
We do. Have you seen these headlines? They are wild. Stuff like, Americans are shocked, emergency meetings held overnight.
The hyperbole is out of control.
It is. I mean, I saw that viral video of the Chinese robots at the Spring Festival doing backflips and kung fu, and I started laughing. The image of U.S. officials losing sleep because a robot did a high kick is just absurd to me.
It's totally absurd, but there's a reason it makes you react that way. It's visually impressive on one level, sure.
But on another level, it feels so oily. That's the only word I have for it. Oily. Like a car salesman smiling way too much.
That's a really specific and perfect description, actually. That reaction you're having, that mix of being visually wowed but viscerally rejecting it, that is classic cognitive dissonance.
Okay, let's unpack that. Why does a backflipping robot make me feel gross instead of amazed?
Because your intuition is way smarter than your eyes. Cognitive dissonance happens when the intensity of a propaganda message completely exceeds what we intuitively know about physical laws or commercial reality.
Right, because my brain knows that real robots are clunky.
Exactly. You see a robot doing a perfect backflip, but your brain knows that in the real world, batteries run out, actuators overheat, code gets buggy. When a video is that slick and overpackaged, your limbic system throws up a warning flag.
It feels oily because it's trying way too hard to sell a reality that doesn't actually exist yet.
Precisely.
It's like those fast food commercials.
Yeah.
See a burger on TV, the bun is shiny, the lettuce is perfectly crisp, the cheese is melting just right.
And then you go to the drive-thru.
And you get a burger that looks like someone sat on it. The commercial isn't a total lie, but it's definitely not the truth either.
And that is exactly what we are doing today on Sip&Talk. We are ignoring the commercial and looking straight at the drive-thru reality.
I love that.
We are getting into the structural risks today. We're breaking down this whole tariff legal battle, specifically the Section 122 maneuver.
Which is a complete legal rabbit hole.
It is. Then we'll get into the AI scare trade and why Wall Street is suddenly terrified of white-collar unemployment.
And we are doing a full reality check on those Chinese robots. Are they civilian helpers? Are they military weapons? Are they even smart or just really well choreographed?
And we'll wrap up with the accelerator theory. Is copying technology actually bad if it ends up driving prices down for everyone else?
Lots to cover. Let's start with the market vibes right now, because honestly, the anxiety out there is thick.
It is. The street is officially calling it the scare trade.
The scare trade. It literally sounds like a bad Halloween movie.
It really does. But the financial losses we're seeing are very real. Think about it. For the last couple of years, AI was pure tech optimism.
Right. It was all about how cool the tools were. Look what we can build. Look how fast we can code.
Exactly. But the narrative has completely shifted. It's not about tech optimism anymore. It's about job anxiety.
The shift from AI will help me do my work to AI will take my work.
And when that psychological shift hits the investor class, money moves fast.
Oh, yeah. I was reading some research this morning that predicts AI could actually spike unemployment to over 10% within just 2 years.
10%.
Yeah, and we aren't talking about factory workers or truck drivers this time. This is white-collar panic. We're talking about accountants, coders, middle managers.
Which is terrifying. A 10% white-collar unemployment rate changes the entire economic landscape of the country.
It changes everything.
It changes tax revenues, it changes consumption habits, it changes the housing market. And you can see this exact fear playing out in the stock market right now. We've got clear winners and losers.
Let's talk about the losers first, because that's where the fear is so obvious. Consumer and service stocks are just taking an absolute beating. Uber, DoorDash, Visa, MasterCard, Amex, they are all dropping.
The logic there is brutal, but it makes total sense. It's second-order thinking.
Right. If you lose your job to an AI agent, what is the very first thing you cut from your monthly budget?
You don't cut your rent. You don't cut your electricity.
You cut the friction reducers, the convenience economy.
You stop ordering the $20 salad delivery on DoorDash.
Exactly. You stop taking Ubers to go meet friends downtown, you take the bus, or you just stay home.
And you definitely stop swiping that American Express card for discretionary stuff.
The market is basically pricing in a future where the convenience economy, which completely relies on a flush middle class that has limited time but extra cash, just collapses.
Because if you have no job, you have plenty of time but zero cash. The premium you pay for convenience totally evaporates.
It's grim. It's basically Wall Street shorting the millennial lifestyle.
That's a good way to put it. But then look at the winners. The infrastructure space is booming. Look at AMD.
AMD was the stock of the day, up 10%.
Yeah, they just closed a massive deal with Meta to deploy 6 gigawatts of data center equipment.
6 gigawatts. I mean, we throw these numbers around, but that is an insane amount of power. That's several nuclear power plants worth of electricity just for one company's AI servers.
It's staggering. But the really interesting angle here isn't just the power grid stuff, it's the corporate strategy.
Right, because Meta has been buying NVIDIA chips by the boatload for years. Why are they suddenly hugging AMD?
Diversification.
Exactly. They don't want to be held hostage.
Meta basically bought into AMD. They became a major shareholder specifically to reduce their reliance on one single supplier. It's classic supply chain management applied to the AI boom.
Zuckerberg is basically looking at Jensen Huang and saying, hey, I love your chips, but I really hate your pricing monopoly.
That's exactly it.
But does that mean NVIDIA's worried? Usually when a rival gets a massive win like 6 gigawatts, the incumbent takes a hit.
Surprisingly, no. NVIDIA's Blackwell chip shipments are still the absolute core of the entire market. In fact, a lot of analysts are looking at NVIDIA right now and saying it's actually cheap relative to its projected earnings.
Wow.
If you believe this AI infrastructure build-out is a multi-year reality, NVIDIA is still the engine of the whole thing. The fact that AMD is rising just tells us the pie is growing faster than NVIDIA can physically eat it alone.
So infrastructure is safe, for now. But what about the companies caught in the middle? The ones scrambling to pivot? Look at IBM.
Oh man, IBM. That was painful.
Worst day in 25 years for their stock.
And that ties right back into the white-collar recession fear we were just talking about.
Yeah, because a huge chunk of IBM's revenue is consulting services. And the market is terrified that those services are going to be automated away.
Think about it from a client's perspective. Why would a company pay a team of IBM consultants $500 an hour each to analyze their business data when they can just have an AI agent ingest their entire SQL database and spit out the exact same report in 10 seconds?
And the AI report costs like 4 cents.
Right. It's a complete disruption of the business model. It's adapt or die right now.
Speaking of adapting, look at Intuit, the company behind TurboTax and QuickBooks. They saw the writing on the wall and immediately partnered with Anthropic to build their own AI agents.
That is the ultimate survival pivot.
They're literally trying to build the exact software that would otherwise replace their core business.
They're cannibalizing their own future revenue just to make sure they still exist as an entity in 5 years.
It's wild. But while the tech giants are fighting this out, there's another flashing red light in the financial sector that we have to touch on. Jamie Dimon's warning.
Yeah, when the CEO of JP Morgan talks, you listen.
He's basically the oracle of banking at this point. And what he said sent absolute chills down my spine.
He compared the current credit market to 2005 through 2007.
That is not a timeline you ever want to be compared to. That's the pregame show for the great financial crisis.
Exactly. He pointed out that investors are doing really stupid things right now, specifically chasing yields in AI and real estate. And we are already seeing the cracks forming in the private credit market. Look at Blue Owl Capital.
Their stock got cut in half. I saw the ticker drop, and I literally thought my app was glitching.
Nope, it was real. And the trigger for that crash was gating.
Okay, let's explain gating for the sip-and-talkers who might not be hedge fund managers. Because it sounds like a fence, but I have a strong feeling it means money jail.
Money jail is the perfect term. Private credit funds are notoriously illiquid.
Yep.
You put your money in, and they lend it out to private companies. But when investors get spooked, like they are right now with the scare trade, they all rush to pull their money out at the same time.
Redemptions.
Right. But the fund can't just sell off a bunch of private loans overnight to get the cash. So they gate the fund, they put up a wall and say, sorry, we are limiting redemptions. You cannot have your money back right now.
That feels very 2008. Sorry, your money is stuck in a half-built skyscraper somewhere.
Or in this case, stuck in a loan to an AI startup that might get steamrolled by Anthropic next week.
Exactly. So we've got a liquidity crisis brewing in opaque private credit, consumer stocks crashing on unemployment fears, and a massive infrastructure boom in data centers. It is a chaotic soup.
And just to add some extra spice to that chaos, the government decided this was the perfect week to throw a massive wrench into global trade.
The tariff jiu-jitsu.
The tariff jiu-jitsu.
I really love that name. But I have to admit, I'm a little confused by the numbers flying around. I keep hearing 15% and 50%. A flat 15% sounds like a tax cut compared to what Trump was originally threatening. But the market is still freaking out. It feels like a trap.
Oh, it's absolutely a trap. It's a highly strategic legal maneuver designed to completely bypass the judicial branch. To really get why the 15% matters, we have to rewind to what just happened in the courtroom.
Okay, take us to court. What happened with the original tariffs?
So Trump originally planned these massive 50-60% tariffs using a law called IEPA, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act.
Which gives the president sweeping powers, but only if there's a declared national emergency, right?
Correct. And the Supreme Court stepped in and said, wait a minute. You can't just declare importing cheap televisions to be a national security emergency. They ruled the IEPA tariffs completely illegal.
They struck it down.
They struck it down hard. And here's the insane part. Because the tariffs were ruled illegal, the U.S. government might suddenly be on the hook for refunds.
Refunds?
Yes. Between $70 billion and $170 billion in refunds to companies that paid those illegal tariffs over the last few years.
Wait, the government has to write checks for up to $170 billion? That's bigger than the GDP of entire countries.
It's a devastating blow to the federal budget. But this is where the jiu-jitsu move happens. Trump didn't just accept the defeat. He immediately pivoted to Plan B. He invoked Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974.
Section 122. It feels like we are studying for the bar exam today. What makes 122 different from IEPA?
It's a completely different legal mechanism. Section 122 is specifically designed to handle a balance of payments deficit.
Okay, translate that for us.
It means that if the U.S. is buying significantly more goods from the rest of the world than it is selling, and that trade imbalance is actively threatening the value of the U.S. dollar or the stability of the economy, the president has the authority to act.
So it's not about national security anymore. It's about accounting security.
Exactly. He's saying, we are spending too much money abroad, so I am taxing everything coming in to balance the books.
Everything.
Everything. Because it's a balance of payments action, the law actually requires non-discrimination. He can't just target China with a 60% tariff. He has to apply it globally. So he slapped a flat 15% temporary tariff on everyone.
Even allies. Canada, Europe, Japan.
Across the board, everyone pays the 15%. But here's the real kicker. Under Section 122, this tariff is only valid for exactly 150 days.
Why 150 days? That's such a weirdly specific number. Why not 6 months or a year?
Because it's a procedural loophole. The law allows the president to impose this specific tariff for 150 days without needing any approval from Congress. It's a ticking clock.
Ah, I see. It's a hostage situation.
It's a massive negotiation chip. He's using Section 122 as a bridge. He's creating 150 days of global trade chaos to force Congress to pass the Reciprocal Trade Act.
He's basically saying, I will make everyone's life miserable with this blanket tariff until you give me the permanent legislative power to tax whoever I want.
That is exactly the play. It's incredibly aggressive.
It is. And corporate America is not just taking it lying down. They are fighting back hard in the courts. FedEx is actually leading the charge right now, suing the government to demand full refunds of those illegal IEPA tariffs.
And they aren't alone. You've got Costco, Alcoa, Revlon, Kawasaki Motors. They are all piling on to these lawsuits.
I can only imagine what the boardroom at Home Depot looks like right now. They import so much physical stuff. Lumber, power tools, hardware.
They are definitely sweating. Home Depot is probably tearing up their pricing strategy as we speak. But think about the unintended macro consequence here. If you're a CEO and you're staring down this 15% tariff that's only locked in for 150 days,
right,
and you know it might get much worse after that or it might disappear entirely, what do you do today?
If I think it's going to get worse, I buy absolutely everything I can right now. I front load all my orders.
Yes. You rush to import. You fill every single warehouse you own. This 150-day window is going to create absolute chaos at the ports. We are looking at an inventory supercycle where companies panic buy to beat the clock.
Which means imports are going to skyrocket in the short term.
Which will ironically skew the trade deficit numbers to look even worse.
Oh, wow. And then Trump will point to those inflated deficit numbers as proof that the trade imbalance is out of control and requires permanent tariffs.
Bingo! That is the jujitsu. Using the market's own panicked reaction against itself to secure the ultimate policy goal.
My head is spinning just trying to map out the logistics of that. It's multidimensional chess, but we're the ones paying higher prices at the store.
It's a wild time to be in supply chain management, that's for sure.
Okay, speaking of things that make my head spin, we need to pivot from trade wars to, well, actual wars, or at least the hardware being built for them. Let's talk about the robots.
Yes, the robots.
Specifically those Spring Festival robots we mentioned earlier, the CCTV gala footage with the Unitree and UB Tech models.
The ones doing the synchronized dancing.
Dancing, kung fu, backflips. The videos went viral instantly.
And to be fair, visually, the dynamic balancing on display is highly impressive. The motor control is very tight.
It is. But again, I come back to that word, oily. It looked beautiful, but it felt like I was watching a circus act. I kept waiting for the lion tamer to walk out.
And from a pure engineering standpoint, you're not wrong. It basically is a circus act. To understand why, we have to distinguish between two completely different types of robotic control architectures.
Okay, lay it out for us non-engineers.
You have pre-programmed trajectory optimization on one side and end-to-end autonomous AI on the other.
Right.
What you saw on that stage at the Spring Festival is trajectory optimization, imitation learning on a strictly fixed path. Think of it like a human gymnast who has practiced the exact same floor routine 10,000 times.
Muscle memory.
Exactly. They know exactly where the floor is. They know exactly how much torque to apply to their ankles to stick the landing. All the complex math is solved by engineers before the robot ever steps onto the stage.
So if I walked onto that stage mid-performance and just casually dropped a banana peel in front of one,
it would slip, fall, and probably shatter. Or even simpler, if you just shifted the stage lighting slightly, which messes with their spatial sensors. Or if you spilled some water and changed the friction coefficient of the floor, they fail.
because they aren't adapting.
Right. The ultimate test of a real robot is, if you change the environment dynamically, does it adapt? These performance robots fail that test because they aren't actually thinking about the floor. They are just executing a highly refined script about the floor.
So it's basically physical choreography. It's a playback recording, just using electric motors instead of audio speakers.
Precisely. Now compare that to the approach we're seeing with things like the Tesla Optimus or the Figure robots being developed in the US. They are attempting to use end-to-end neural nets.
Meaning the robot is actually thinking.
Meaning the robot takes in visual data through its cameras. That data goes into a neural network brain, and it directly outputs a physical action. It's not following a script. It sees a coffee cup, it processes the concept of cup, and it figures out how to grab it in real time. If you move the cup 2 inches to the left, it sees the change and adjusts its hand.
So the Chinese showcase robots are Olympic dancers, but the American robots are basically learning to be toddlers.
That's a great analogy. And toddlers eventually learn how to drive cars and build houses. Dancers just keep doing the same dance. And we actually have hard data backing up this exact clumsiness in the Chinese models when they are taken off the stage.
The living room tests.
Yes. The Wall Street Journal and The Verge recently got their hands on some of these humanoid robots and put them in actual homes. Not a controlled stage, a messy living room.
Which is the ultimate chaos zone. You've got rugs that slip, Legos on the floor, bad lighting, a cat running across the room.
Exactly. And they asked these robots to do basic tasks. Fold a shirt, pick up a mug. The success rate was well below 50%.
Below 50%. So it's literally a coin flip where I get my morning coffee or the robot crushes the mug in his metal hand.
And the latency was terrible. They would issue a voice command, and the robot would just stand there frozen for seconds, processing the environment before it even twitched. It's what engineers call the sim-to-real gap.
Meaning it works perfectly in the computer simulation.
But in the real world, physics is messy and unpredictable.
See, this makes me feel so much better about my robot vacuum. It just blindly bangs into the walls and gets stuck under the couch. It's stupid, but it's reliably stupid.
Right.
If my vacuum suddenly started doing ballet, I would immediately assume someone was putting strings behind the curtain. It feels like we're being sold the idea of an autonomous Tesla, but what we're actually getting is just a really expensive, pre-programmed RC car.
That comparison to Tesla is actually the key to understanding the divergence in the underlying tech stacks. Tesla's full self-driving is entirely vision-based. It looks at the road exactly like a human driver does.
So it generalizes. It can drive on a dirt road it's never seen before.
Yes, because it understands the abstract concept of a road, but the Chinese tech stack, especially in their EVs and these humanoid robots, leans heavily on high-definition maps and LiDAR sensors.
Which means it needs the answer key before the test starts.
Exactly. It works flawlessly in a map city like Shenzhen or Beijing, where every curb is measured down to the millimeter. But drop that same car or robot in the middle of a rural dirt road that isn't on the map, it completely freezes. It doesn't know how to improvise.
It's the difference between knowing the principles of driving and just memorizing a specific route to work.
So when you see these viral headlines screaming that Americans are terrified of Chinese robots, you have to recognize it for what it is. Emotional blackmail. Pure clickbait.
It's internal propaganda being exported. They're putting on a show to convince their own citizens that they lead the world in AI, and they're just hoping the West falls for the illusion, too.
And let's not forget, Boston Dynamics was doing perfect backflips with their hydraulic Atlas robots almost 10 years ago.
10 years.
Yeah. This recent wave of videos is just catching up to a 10-year-old milestone. It's not some sudden leap ahead.
But, and there's a very big but here.
I sense a pivot.
We can sit here and laugh about the dancing robots slipping on banana peels in a living room, but then you watch the other videos, the military ones.
Right. The tone shifts very quickly there.
We go from dancing humanoids to quadruped machine wolves with automatic rifles strapped to their backs. Yeah. And they're definitely not dancing.
No, they're not. This is where the conversation gets incredibly dark. We are talking about the recent PLA exercises, specifically the footage coming out of things like Justice Mission 2025.
Justice Mission. They always give these things names that sound like a friendly superhero movie.
It's deliberate branding, but the hardware they are showcasing, these armed machine wolf platforms, is highly specific. If you look at the specs and the exercise scenarios, you can clearly identify 3 presumed battlefields they are engineering these things for.
They aren't just building them for general warfare. They're trying to solve very specific geographical problems.
Problems that currently result in high human casualties.
Okay, let's go through the list. Where is battlefield number 1?
The most obvious one, if you follow geopolitics at all, is Taiwan, specifically the Red Beach scenario and subsequent urban warfare.
The amphibious landing zones.
Exactly. An amphibious assault is arguably the most complex and dangerous maneuver in all of warfare. That 200-meter death zone on the beach between the waterline and the tree line is where an attacking force takes catastrophic losses. It's D-Day.
So the strategy is to completely remove humans from that first wave.
Send the machine wolves in as the vanguard. You drop hundreds of these robotic dogs onto the beach first. They clear the landmines, they draw the enemy fire, they identify sniper positions, and they secure the initial beachhead.
Because if a robot dog gets blown up by a mine, you lose, what, $20,000?
Exactly. But if a human soldier gets blown up, you lose a life, you have to pay death benefits, and the morale of the entire unit collapses.
This is brutal, cold calculus. Metal is infinitely cheaper than flesh.
And that logic extends right into the cities. Urban combat is an absolute meat grinder. Clearing buildings room by room is terrifying and deadly. If you can send a quadruped robot armed with a camera and a rifle through a doorway instead of an 18-year-old kid, you drastically reduce your own casualties.
Okay, so Taiwan is the first specific use case. What's the second battlefield?
The India border, up in the Ladakh region.
We're talking about the Himalayas here.
Yes. High altitude, extreme cold, incredibly low oxygen. This environment is a physiological nightmare for human soldiers. Once you get up to 15,000 feet, troops get severe altitude sickness, they fatigue instantly, and carrying a 60-pound combat pack is pure agony.
I imagine even regular combustion engines struggle up there because the air is so thin.
They do. Generators and trucks lose a massive amount of power. But do you know it doesn't care at all about oxygen levels?
A lithium-ion battery and an electric motor.
Exactly. Electric robots don't get altitude sickness. The PLA is actively testing these quadruped robots for high-altitude logistics, using them for last-mile delivery of ammo and rations up steep mountain slopes where wheeled vehicles can't go and human porters would collapse.
That is terrifyingly practical. It completely neutralizes the home field terrain advantage of the defenders holding the high ground.
It really does. And the third presumed battlefield is the South China Sea.
The contested islands and reefs.
Right. A lot of those outposts involve small islands with complex cave systems or reinforced tunnels. They are designing smaller, highly agile robots specifically engineered for clearing out these confined subterranean spaces where a human soldier would be blind and trapped.
It sounds like an absolute sci-fi nightmare come to life. But I need you to give me a reality check here. We just spent 10 minutes trashing the civilian robots for not being able to fold a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Are these military wolves actually Terminators? Or are they like the dancers, terrifying on video but practically useless in the mud?
That is the crucial question. And the answer is they are absolutely not Terminators yet. The technological reality behind the scary videos has some very severe constraints.
What's the biggest bottleneck?
The control ratio. Right now, despite all the talk of AI, it still takes roughly one highly trained human operator to effectively control about 8 of these robots in a dynamic combat environment.
Wait, really? So it's not a fully autonomous, self-thinking swarm?
No, it's essentially a remote-controlled squad. The human is still making the tactical decisions and pulling the trigger remotely, and that control link, the invisible tether between the human operator and the machine, is their massive weak point.
Because they have to communicate over a network.
Exactly. They are highly dependent on satellite links or localized radio frequency meshes.
Which immediately brings us to electronic warfare.
You got it. If a defending force can jam the local signals, if they blast the area with broad-spectrum EW noise, the terrifying machine wolf suddenly turns into a very expensive, motionless paperweight.
It just disconnects.
It might have some basic fail-safe programming to try and walk back to base, but its combat effectiveness drops to 0 instantly.
So if you can essentially cut the Wi-Fi on the beach, the robot invasion stops.
It's an oversimplification, but functionally, yes. They are highly susceptible to advanced jamming. And beyond the signal issue, there's a massive hardware constraint.
The chips.
Always the chips. These robots require significant onboard processing power for basic spatial navigation. They rely heavily on domestic chips like the Huawei Ascend 310B.
But under the current U.S. sanctions, getting the advanced lithography machines to mass produce those chips is incredibly difficult.
Extremely difficult. The yield rates on those advanced domestic chips are a closely guarded state secret, but industry rumors strongly suggest they are struggling with scale.
So it's one thing to hand-build 50 of these robot dogs for a flashy military exercise video.
But manufacturing 50,000 of them, equipping them with high-end processors and deploying them reliably, that is a massive industrial bottleneck they haven't solved yet.
But here's the philosophical question that keeps bothering me. Even if they are clunky, even if they can be jammed, does simply possessing this robotic army lower the threshold for starting a war in the first place?
That is arguably the most important question we could ask today, and historically speaking, the answer is usually yes.
Because the political cost of war goes down.
Exactly. The biggest deterrent for any political leader considering a military offensive is the fear of body bags coming home. The domestic political blowback of dead soldiers is massive.
But if a general can tell the leader, hey, we can take this beach and we won't have to write 1,000 letters to grieving mothers,
the temptation to launch that offensive increases exponentially. It completely gamifies death.
It turns an actual human tragedy into a sterile resource management game, like playing StarCraft.
And that is the true danger of these platforms. It's not that the robot is going to spontaneously gain consciousness and decide to kill humanity. It's that the existence of the robot makes it psychologically easier for human leaders to choose to kill each other.
Wow. That is heavy. It really changes how you look at a supposedly cool tech demo of a robot dog. It's not just engineering, it's the psychology of violence.
It is. The friction of war is being removed. But I want to pivot us back to the economic side of things, because you brought up a really fascinating point earlier.
The great accelerator theory.
Yes. We talked about the scare trade, and we talked about the oily propaganda. But is there a silver lining to all this Chinese manufacturing scale?
Yeah, let's look at the flip side of the coin. I was having a debate with a friend recently, and they made the argument that China shouldn't be viewed just as a threat, but as the great accelerator for global technology.
I really like that framing. Walk me through the logic.
It revolves entirely around the open source movement. Look at Western companies, specifically Meta with their Llama AI models. They spend billions developing the core architecture, and then they open source it. They publish the recipe for the AI brain for free. China then takes that freely available recipe, optimizes the hell out of it, and pairs it with their insane manufacturing capacity to achieve mass production. They don't invent the meal, but they cook it for incredibly cheap.
That is the chef analogy.
Exactly. If I go online, download a recipe from a 3-star Michelin chef, and cook it in my kitchen, I can probably call myself a good cook. But I absolutely cannot stand there and claim that I invented the dish.
And that dynamic right there is the source of all the geopolitical friction. The disgust, that oily feeling we talked about at the top of the show. It flares up when Chinese tech firms take optimized open source code, slap a new interface on it, and loudly claim it as a triumph of quote-unquote independent research.
Like what happened with DeepSeek being heavily built on the Llama architecture. They basically sanded the serial numbers off the engine block and tried to sell it as a brand new invention.
Exactly. Don't tell the world you invented a revolutionary new flavor profile when all you did was add a pinch of salt to someone else's soup.
But, and here is the really big but for the global economy. Does the end consumer actually care who invented the recipe, as long as the meal is delicious and costs $2?
Ah, the deflationary argument.
Right. This hyper-competitive rolling, this intense optimization culture, it violently drives prices down across the board.
It drives them straight into the floor. Look at the robotics market. Just a few years ago, a research-grade quadruped robot cost roughly $100,000. Today, because of Chinese supply chain optimization, you can buy a highly capable model for $16,000.
$16,000. That is literally the price of a used Honda Civic.
It completely changes the math. At $100,000, only university labs and massive corporations can afford them. At $16,000, a small logistics business can buy 3 of them.
It democratizes the technology.
Exactly. It means a textile factory in the global south, in Brazil or Indonesia or Nigeria, might suddenly be able to afford the kind of automation that was previously locked away in elite German or Japanese facilities.
So it really is a symbiotic relationship. It's incredibly tense and full of intellectual property theft, but it's symbiotic.
The West invents the 0 to 1, the actual breakthrough, and
Right.
China does the 1 to N, the massive scaling.
China is the application king.
They absolutely are. They are constantly pushing the extreme limits of engineering efficiency and supply chain integration, even if the actual 0 to 1 invention happened in a garage in California.
They're forcing these nascent technologies to mature and drop in price much, much faster than they would have in a vacuum.
Right. If nobody was aggressively copying and scaling Boston Dynamics work, those robots would probably stay at $100,000 for another decade.
So in a really weird, twisted way, the AI scare trade and the great accelerator theory are just 2 sides of the exact same coin. The sheer speed of the development is terrifying for white-collar jobs, but it's also delivering incredible deflationary results for physical hardware.
That is the defining paradox of 2026. We are absolutely terrified of the speed of change, but as a society, we are completely addicted to the progress. We want the cheap robot, even if we are scared it might take our accounting job.
Which is a wild place to be. Okay, so how do we wrap all this up for our Sip&Talkers today? We've covered tariffs that could trigger billions in refunds, AI agents crashing the entire convenience economy, backflipping robots that can't reliably fold a t-shirt, and machine wolves training to climb the Himalayas.
I think the main summary for today, the big takeaway, is that 2026 is officially the year of sorting truth from fake.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's hit the key takeaways. First, do not automatically believe the shock and awe headlines without checking the underlying data. If you see a robot dancing gracefully on a stage, ask yourself if it can dynamically fold laundry in a messy room.
And if you can fold the laundry, ask if it requires a continuous satellite link and a human operator behind a screen to do it.
Exactly. If the movement looks too smooth, it is almost certainly trajectory optimization, not a thinking neural brain. Second takeaway. This new 15% tariff is a breather, not a permanent cure.
It's a 150-day window of engineered chaos.
Right. It's designed to force legislation through Congress. If you are running a business that relies on imports, you need to brace for a massive inventory supercycle right now.
The trade deficit numbers over the next few months are going to look completely unhinged because everyone is panic buying.
Don't panic when you see those numbers. Just remember, it's the tariff jujitsu at work.
And what about on the AI and jobs front?
On AI, you have to realize that the manufacturing scale is very real, even if the current robots are clumsy. The hardware is coming, and the price is crashing. Whether this all leads to a permanent scare trade recession or a massive global productivity boom really depends on how quickly we adapt.
If you are working in a white-collar field that relies heavily on data processing, you need to start looking for your survival pivot right now. Do what Intuit did. Don't be IBM.
And as always, a quick reminder to everyone listening, this is not investment advice.
We are just two people with microphones and way too much coffee analyzing the news.
News, do your own research. DYOR.
And just to add to that, a statement of neutrality from us. We don't have a bias against any specific country or company here. We are just looking objectively at the facts, reading the legal text like Section 122, and applying critical thinking.
We want to make sure you understand the why behind the what. That is the whole mission of the show.
It is. And hey, if you enjoy sorting the truth from the fake with us, please make sure you subscribe to Sip and Talk. We genuinely appreciate every single one of you who tunes in.
And before we sign off, I think you had a quick shout out.
Yes. I have to give a quick personal plug. My good friend Mickey just launched a brand new travel vlog over on her YouTube channel, Mickey to Life.
Mickey to Life.
It is absolutely beautiful footage. She is traveling to these incredible places. Go check it out and subscribe.
We see you, Mickey. But seriously, you need to update faster. We need more episodes. All right, everyone, I'll leave you with one final thought to mull over. If the AI scare trade wipes out the consumer class, but the great accelerator builds millions of cheap robots, who exactly is going to buy the products those robots make?
Oh, that is a dark thought to end on. A fully automated supply chain with zero customers.
Think about it. Stay curious. Stay skeptical, everyone.
Bye-bye.
See you next time.